mentor, and someone who I think of as a family member. It's someone who gives me advice when I need help. When I need to talk with someone, he gives me advice, and that's our keynote speaker, Attorney Joey Jackson. Let me just give you a little bit about his background. Attorney Jackson is a nationally recognized criminal defense attorney who has for nearly 2 decades represented individuals and labor unions in state and federal court. Attorney Jackson has built an outstanding career as a trial lawyer representing clients who have fallen into high-stakes personal and professional crises. Attorney Jackson has been a member of the New York Bar since 1995. After graduating from Hofstra Law School, Attorney Jackson was appointed Assistant District Attorney in Manhattan. Following a successful career as a prosecutor, where he received the Distinguished Public Award, Attorney Jackson went into private practice in New York City. He currently serves as senior trial counsel at his law firm. But that wasn't it for him. Prior to law school, he earned his MPA, his Master's in Public Administration, from SUNY Albany's Rockefeller College of Public Affairs and Policy. While earning his master's degree, he worked for the New York Assembly Speaker as a legislative analyst. He also holds a bachelor's degree from the college at Brockport, where he participated in the honors program, directed the student-run Legal Information Service, served as the student body president, and interned with the Education Department, as well as Congressman Charles B. Rangel in Washington, D.C. In addition to that, he worked for the New York City Mayor's Office. He's a former professor at Monroe College, where he taught business law and civil rights. And perhaps you may know him because his straight-talking legal expertise is held in high regard by national media outlets, as evidenced by his frequent television commentary over the past several years on various platforms. He is now currently employed, in addition to his law firm, as through Turner Broadcasting as a CNN and HLN legal analyst. 5 nights out of the week, if you turn on the TV, it's Joey Jackson. And I love it because what I'll do is I'll text him and I'll say, "Hey, I see you." And he'll text me back on the commercial break. And he'll say, and it's just funny. But anyway, let me just say this. On a personal note, Attorney Jackson flew in this morning from New York City. Had a great ride over. Went and picked him up. He had never, I don't think, flown on a propeller plane, so he flew in to Greenville on a propeller plane. And we had a great talk on the way back. We were driving back, and he's from New York City, so as we were driving back, we were passing a 18-wheeler with logs on it. And Attorney Jackson said, "Why are there logs going down the highway?" And I said, "Attorney Jackson, that's what we do. We make paper with trees here." And he said, "But the only paper I know is the paper that goes in my pocket." And so Attorney Jackson is by far recognized as one of the leading legal analysts in the country. I'm proud to call him a good friend. He's been a professor, he's served in politics, and he's an attorney. He's my brother from another mother. Attorney Jackson, come on up.
So he's a comedian now too, you see that? A pleasant good evening to everyone. That's a pleasant good evening to everyone. Much better. So let me just tell you, I actually was born and raised. Everyone hear me okay? I was actually born and raised in the Bronx, New York. But notwithstanding that, I left the Bronx. Well, I've stayed quite a long time in my life, and my dad passed about 5 years ago. My mother was there all that time, and then she moved out of the Bronx. Dad was a wonderful man. He's with me now. He always is, and he taught me so many lessons, and God bless him. But growing up in the Bronx, you learn a number of things, and it was just a wonderful opportunity to be there, to grow up in that environment. I also feel a connection, though, to North Carolina, I should tell you. And I feel a connection to this event, a very special connection, and that's for a couple of reasons. The first of which is my son was a senior in high school last year and just graduated last year and started and will be rising into his second year at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So I have never been in North Carolina so much in the last, I guess, 14 months. I actually was never here before that, and the issue about the propeller plane is actually true because RDU, right? You go straight to RDU airport, but here I had to go to one airport, I had to go to the other airport, but we're here, and that's a blessing. But the other reason is for that very purpose, and that's that I feel a connection is just the value to education and an event like this, for which I couldn't miss. Because it speaks to that value and it speaks to the significance of young people who really hold all of our futures in their hands. Because we're depending upon their knowledge, we're depending upon their wisdom, we're depending upon their expertise, and we are so appreciative that they have made that commitment to education. And so, before I begin the essence of the message that I have for everyone, particularly our young scholarship recipients, could I ask our scholarship recipients to stand? Let me just see you and admire you for a minute, please. Can they get around to you? Keep up the amazing work that you do, and I'll have a message for you momentarily. I want a couple of other people to stand, though. And that's Corey Mercer, first of all. Where are you, Corey? Corey Mercer is back there. Now, Corey Mercer is studying both law, and he's getting a combined JD MBA degree, okay? And when you have people like that who are striving hard, who have made the commitment to education, it just serves and puts us on notice that we are in great hands, that education is important, and that people know the value of it and are striving to work as hard as they can and to do the best that they can. So, I know you're graduating in December. We're expecting great things from you. Keep up the wonderful work. And then, of course, we have Derek Furlow. Where are you, Derek? Derek's back there as well. Derek is working on a curriculum, and that curriculum is designed for athletes, no matter what level that they participated in, but to take all the lessons that they've learned in any given athletic endeavor and just apply it to real life so that they can go back to their communities, be better people, and do better things, and to actually use everything that they know and have applied to build successful careers and lives. And if they do that, we all benefit. And so I'm grateful for the work that you're doing, Derek. Keep it up, okay? And now, my remarks. So, I want to primarily address the young people here. And in doing that, I want to talk about something I think is very important. You know, we learned about the 3 R's, right? Reading, writing, and arithmetic. Well, today I want to talk to you about what I call the multiple P's. Okay? The multiple P's, and you'll come in time to learn exactly what I'm talking about. Now, in talking about the multiple P's, what I want to tell you is that as you go throughout life, there are a number of things that are expected of you. The first is performance. So to our young people out there who are looking to build careers, who are looking to go to college and to make your mark, the first thing it starts with is showing up. It starts with performing. It starts with being the best version of yourself that you possibly can be. And that begins with waking up in the morning. As soon as that alarm clock goes off, you have the opportunity today to grasp the day. You have the opportunity to seize the moment. You have the opportunity to be the best you possibly can be, to absorb as much as you can absorb, to move forward as much as you can potentially move forward. You know, it's interesting. I remember back, and I had the pleasure of having dinner with one wonderful group of people. One, Professor Mary Wright, professor of Phelps, of course. And, you know, it reminded me as we were going through, as my friend and comedian Phelps was talking about moments ago. As we were driving through the roads, we saw these fields, and I'm saying, you know, what are these things? And so he says, well, these are the corn, and this is the beans, and this is the tobacco. And when we passed the field of corn, it reminded me of the performance issue, because I think back to my very first day of law school, okay? And in my very first day of law school, what happens is we're in class, and it's this amphitheater, right? Whole bunch of people. It's about 150 of us. And so the Socratic method is a method wherein they call on you as an attorney because you have to be quick on your feet, right? You're in court and you're expected to have answers to questions. You're expected to address the court. You're in front of juries. And it begins with day one. And so when you show up to your first day of law school, what they do is they not only have already given you the cases so that when you come you're prepared to talk, but they now call on you out of the blue. You have no idea, and you're expected to perform, to give the answer. But there's a twist to it. Here's the twist. They give you the case that you're about to study, right? But they don't ask you a question about the facts of that case. They ask you a question that has concepts that are built in, but they're like the case, but they're designed to get the concept of the case with different facts. So everybody here, and Phelps, you will excuse me, and Derek, you would excuse me too. They heard the story this morning. I couldn't help but tell it when I passed the cornfield. It reminded me of it. So what happens is first day, no joke. So we're in this large class, and everybody knows that possession possession is 9/10 of the law. We've heard that, right? Well, that actually comes out of a case. And the case it comes out of is a case in New York, and it involves a man named Pearson and another man named Post. So they're chasing a fox through the woods. They're chasing a fox, and what happens is Pearson is chasing this fox. And he's chasing a fox for about 2 weeks, right? He's waking up in the morning, the fox is out foxing him, it's running around, he can't find the fox. So after a while, when Pearson's chasing the fox, Post wakes up, shoots the fox, brings it under his control. So now there's a lawsuit, because Pearson says, I chased this fox for 2 weeks. This should be my fox. Post says, well, what are you talking about? I woke up, I killed it, it's mine. I have it in my possession and control. So in any event, we're in the class, and my professor, property professor, right, much as Professor Wright has done, will continue to do, says, okay, so today we're going to be talking about the case of Pearson versus Post. And taking us through the discussion will be, she scrolls through the manifest, scrolls, Mr. Jackson. I say, you have to be kidding. There's 150 people in this class, and she's calling Mr. Jackson, right? What are the odds? I bet somebody out there, probably one of you, right, young high school, going to college, and figuring out what the actual statistical odds are. But I mean it in a different way, all right? So, in any event, so she says, Mr. Jackson. So now what I do is I'm figuring Jackson is a pretty common name, right? So if I say nothing, my hope is that somebody else will raise their hand, and if they raise their hand, they could take all the heat off me. So she looks through, and she's looking, and she says, well, there's only one Jackson. I say, oh. So now I say, here, right? So, performance. So now, I say, all right, I feel good. I read this case. I'm up on the case. I know about the fox. He's chasing the fox. It's 2 weeks. It's New York. He brings it under his control. And the portion of the case that I have to tell you all is the law right then. They had to decide what they were going to reward. Are you going to reward someone's labor for laboring over acquiring property? Or are you going to honor somebody bringing the property under control? So the law in the case is, if you bring it under control, no matter your labor, no matter how many weeks, it's yours. So I knew that concept. So now she says, Mr. Jackson, yes? You come across a field of corn, hence the story this morning, the tobacco, the corn, the beans, the truck with logs moving. So she says, you come across a field of corn. And when you come across the field of corn, there's no gate, there's no sign, there's no fence, there's no structure enclosing the corn. What, sir, do you do with it? So I'm saying to myself, she has got to be kidding me. What on earth is this lady talking to me about corn for when I know this is a case about a fox in some woods? So ultimately I say, I'm sitting there, and she says, yes? And I say, well, Professor, if I came across a field of corn, I would burn it, or boil it, excuse me, right? I said I would boil it. So now when I say I boil it, the class laughs, but she doesn't, okay? So she says, why would you do that? And I said, well, you know, corn generally, if you want it, you boil it. And the fact is that if there is no gate, there is no sign, there's no enclosure, there's no structure, it's not owned by anybody. Nobody's exercising dominion and control over it. So if I wanted to take that corn and bring it into my own, that would be my prerogative. And so she looked at me and said, okay. And that was my very first experience in law school, believe it or not. So on the issue of performance, what I say to all of you is that every single day, and again I'm talking about the P's, and I have other P's to introduce you to, you have an opportunity just to do the best you possibly can. And it starts with showing up, and showing up is oftentimes the most difficult part of what we do. But when we get there and we show up, that gives us an opportunity to do what we do and to do it as best we possibly can, even under circumstances where I was in, where it was just a little bit, it was a little bit peculiar, and it was an environment that I was not very familiar with, but I did my best, just as all of you every day will continue to do your best. The other thing that I would say to you is, you know, life is always about recognizing the possibilities as well. It's about recognizing possibilities and knowing and understanding that you can overcome any adversity that you're possibly faced with. There's a possibility in every single thing. One last story, and if you permit me, and that's this. You know, as an attorney, oftentimes you come into very difficult circumstances, and there are people, particularly when you're doing defense work, who are in some impossible scenarios. And I could recall someone coming into my office, and I could recall a grown man crying, and I could recall him being in a very serious issue. He was out on a significant amount of bail, and he was being accused of attempted murder. Okay? And there were a number of witnesses who had pointed him out at a nightclub as the person who engaged in the crime. And as a result of that, they had the witnesses to establish it was him. But in addition to that, everybody knows about DNA. They also had DNA that pointed to him as the person who was responsible for doing this. So I said, well, they have your DNA because the officer approached you, patted you, frisked you, got the knife from your pocket, tested it, and had the victim's DNA. So they have the victim's DNA, they have 4 witnesses. We have to discuss a plea. He said, I swear to you, Mr. Jackson, I did not do this. I need your help, please. And so I started examining the file, examining the file, examining the file. The more I looked, the more I saw that it was very odd to me that they had these 3 witnesses, and the 3 witnesses that they had were all known to each other. They were all friends. And in addition to them all being friends, there were about 350 people or so that were there. Why didn't anybody else come forward and say it was him? And then I looked at the DNA and I said, well, wait a minute, the same officer who pat-frisked him and took the knife from his pocket was the same officer who, when he was on the scene, actually was the guy who helped the bloody victim onto the stretcher and into the ambulance, and then he went and searched my client. So now we have an issue regarding the contamination of the DNA, which was argued to the jury, and we had the issue of, if there are 3 witnesses, did the officers, everybody who investigated, right? Did you speak to anybody else? Any other patrons beside these 3? Or did you close the case when those 3 pointed it out? Well, we didn't need to speak to anyone because those were the 3. So that's their answer. So you didn't speak to the bartender, you didn't speak to the bouncer, you didn't speak to people who were walking on the street, you didn't speak to anybody else who was in that club, anyone who was outside of the club, anybody else who saw anything, because you were relying upon 3 people. And when 3 people or anybody goes to a nightclub, generally people drink, do they not? And so did you happen to notice what their state of sobriety was when you interviewed them and talked to them about what they saw? Well, that wasn't that important. It's not important to know about someone's state of sobriety who's saying that this guy tried to murder someone? And you took 3 people's word and closed the case based on that, and then you have 13 officers at the scene and allowed the very officer who assisted the bloody victim onto the stretcher and into the ambulance to search my client? And so ultimately, by the grace of God, he went home and was declared not guilty. So it taught me a critical lesson, and I impart that lesson to all of you scholarship recipients and everyone else. And that is that if we look for the possibilities, we look to uncover not just the surface of what we see, but we scrape beyond the surface of what we see. We try to examine, we try to come up with angles and approaches to problems that we have that need solutions, you'll find it. And it takes work, it takes dedication, and it takes you using the skill and the ability that you have that brought you to this place, and that'll bring you to so many other places. And that brings me to another P, and that's persistence. You know, few times in life do we go through life and everything is just, you know, wonderful, peachy, okay? We go through life and it's, of course, there's going to be times where we trip. Of course, there's going to be times where you stumble. And there may be those times where you fall. And even when you fall, you might get a broken bone or two as a result of it. But the measure and the value of who you are, you're not measured by the fact that you trip, that you fall, that you stumble. You're measured by the fact that you have the ability to get up and keep moving and to making it happen. And that's what it's all about. It's about being persistent enough to get up. It's about being measured not by the setback, but by being evaluated by the comeback. And so think about that as you move on into your colleges and you're having these courses and the courses are difficult and you're having trying days and trying times. There's always tomorrow. I started with my father, and I'll say this. He always used to tell me that as long as you're breathing, you always got a shot. And if you're breathing and you got a shot, understand and recognize that you may be down today, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be out tonight. And so it is incumbent upon you to recognize and to understand that and to keep pushing forward and keep pushing through. Which brings me to the other P, which is patience. The reality is that all of us want things now, right? Now, yesterday. But the fact is that it's a process and it takes time. And progress is very, what we call incremental. There are steps that you take. We heard the wonderful remarks of the prior scholarship recipients. And it was just music to my ears to see how well they're doing. And to the gentleman who said he wasn't a good public speaker, I beg to differ, my good man. You did a great job, okay? And the fact is that, who was a young lady, 375? And I mean, all of you, powerful, powerful people. And it's incremental progress, right? They sat, my scholarship recipients, where you were, right? There was a time when they came to this great event that Phelps puts together, and they were honored in getting a scholarship. It wasn't $750 at the time, they wish it was, right? It raised up a little bit because of the great support of the community, right? But the fact is that they sat where you sat, and their incremental progress brought them to their college, and they continue to do great things, and they cared enough, not only to think about themselves, but to come back and pay tribute to you. And so the fact is that understand that with that incremental progress, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes energy, but don't give up, be patient, know, recognize, and understand that you'll get there. May not be today, may not be next week, may not be the month after, but it's going to happen in time. And they're going to continue to do great things, and you know what? All of you are going to continue to do great things too. And that is a blessing and an honor. Which leads me to doing those great things, another P, and that's passion. The fact is that it's so important to follow your passion and to follow your dreams, no matter what those dreams are. And it's okay if you sit there that you don't quite know or quite get, as of today, what that passion really is. It may not have hit you, or it may have, and you know and understand in your heart that you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a scientist, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be whatever you are. And so God bless you. Keep that, harness it, run with it. But to those of you who sit there and are not quite sure, it's okay. It's very difficult for you being 17, 18 years old to know what you want to be doing at 50. And so part of following your passion and being true to yourself is doing things that you may not think you might like to do and learning you love it. Or doing something that you thought you loved and learning that you do not. I could recall when I was in college, I took a geology course. And in taking that geology course, there was nothing more in my life that pushed me more towards law than taking that geology course. I was playing with all kinds of rocks, putting acid and other things on rocks. Is it an igneous rock, a metamorphic rock, a sedimentary rock, who rock, what? It wasn't for me. But in learning and exposing myself to something else and taking a shot, maybe it would have been. Who knows? Maybe I could have been Indiana Jones or somebody else, okay? But the fact is that I tried it, I didn't like it. But it was part of the process. And when I talk about that, what I also would encourage all of you to do is to be open to different things. Be open to something that you might not think is something that you can see yourself doing, because you never know, you might love doing it. Be open to new ideas and new people and new experiences and new cultures and new journeys in your life. You never know. It may be something you may love to do, or maybe something that you think you could never do, and as a result of that, it'll push you in the direction that you really want to go. And so, in following your passion and in understanding your life's purpose, just be true to that. All of us work so hard on any given day, on any given week, on any given month. You know, if you love doing what you do, and you ultimately capture the essence of who you are and what you're about and what God put you here for, no matter how many hours of the day, the week, the month, the year you work, it'll seem like no work at all. Because that's what you're designed to do, that's what you love, that's your passion, that's your mission, and you're carrying it out, and you couldn't be happier every single day to get up and to do what it is you do. And so in doing that, I would encourage you, again, just to be open-minded, to be receptive, and to learn about who you are and what you're about. I also want to talk to you about the power of being positive. The fact is that we live in very trying times. We know that. There are a lot of issues that confront us. Sure, local community issues, there's state issues here in North Carolina. It doesn't end here in New York. We have the same, if not more. But the fact is that there's a lot to be said for seeing the glass not half empty, but half full. What is our mindset? What do we bring to the equation? What is it, and how is it that we can be better and give back and do better? And positivity is an attitude. Positivity is contagious. You ever been somewhere and someone yawns and you start yawning too? Right? It's the most amazing thing. Someone yawns and all of a sudden I'm yawning. How does that happen? But when someone's positive, when someone's a leader, when someone just, every single day they get up and they move forward and they see that great things can happen. I think we know a person like that, Phelps, right? And so the fact is that when you're positive, it's an energy source, and it also renews your energy. And it lets you know that everything is going to be okay. And we're going to work to make it that way. And it goes along with all of these P's are not to be looked at in isolation. They're to be looked at with the other things I talked about. It goes into the issue of, well, I'm going to be persistent because I know I'm going to get it right. I know it's going to be better. I'm going to perform because I know I can perform and I can do better and I will do better. I'm going to be patient because I know that I may not get it today, but tomorrow's another day, and I'm going to keep working for that. Because yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, but I'm going to work as hard as I can today. And along the lines of being positive, don't panic. Don't panic. You're not doing as well as you could in a course. So what? Get extra help? Keep working. Keep doing it. You'll get it. It'll come together. You didn't do as well as you'd like in a paper you submitted. Okay? Life's not over. There's other papers, there's other courses, there's other things. You had an internship that didn't go as well as you thought it could go. Life happens, right? You'll do better the next time. What did you learn in that internship that's going to make you do better? What did you learn in that internship that's going to build your career for the future? Take the good out of it and learn from it. And so the fact is that when we do that, we cannot help but succeed. We cannot help but move forward. And we cannot help, really, but taking the essence of what we learn. And as they say, when you have lemons, you make lemonade. And so we're not going to panic. We're not going to be frustrated. Whenever it is, and I'm sure a number of you swim because it's hot out there. So when you're in a swimming pool, if you start flailing around, you sink. But smooth strokes are going to get you to the other side. Because you're not going to be deterred. You're going to panic. You're not going to panic, and it's going to help you to tread that water. And so when you think about these P's that I'm talking about, and not panicking, and being positive, and being persistent, and performing, These are things that I want you to look at, examine, and value. And when you think about that, and you think about being patient and everything else, I want to encourage you to do this. You'll be offered a lot of opportunities in your life. And maybe it's an internship you get and it's not a paid internship, so what? Right? So what? It's not a paid internship. Maybe it is paid, but it's not as much as you thought you could get, so what? Stick with it. I did what I call an internship for Fox News for about 4.5 years. They were picking me up to do their program, Didn't earn a dime. Sent a nice car to get me, but didn't earn a dime, right? I mean, so what? They sent a car to get me. Okay, that's nice. But that eventually led to other things. A contract with Court TV, which was in session at the time. A contract with HLN, a contract with CNN. We can't give up. We have to know and be positive and not panic because things are not working our way, and to stay the course. And just because we don't get the instant gratification doesn't mean that there's not in the future, if you look, a pot of gold waiting for you if you allow yourself to see that light at the end of the tunnel, and if you give yourself an opportunity to get to the end of the tunnel. And so in doing that, just a couple more things I'll say, and that is another P, and it's called past. And maybe some of you have the greatest of all pasts, and maybe some of you may not. There may have been a hiccup or two in your past, right? There may not be a hiccup or two in your past. But no matter what adversity you encountered in your past, no matter what adversity there is to come, which will also pass, the fact is that it's not about yesterday. The past is not a dictator of the future. And that goes on two accounts. If you did wonderful in the past, that's great, keep it up. But you still have to work hard to continue to be as wonderful as you were in the past. So don't use it as a crutch and rely upon it. If you did not so well as you did in the past, understand that you have today and the future to pick that up. And so regardless of what the past is, I'll say to you, not that you run away from the past, embrace it, but understand that it's a learning tool and a learning experience for us. It doesn't dictate who we are or who we can become. And so please think about that as you're moving forward and doing what you do. The other thing I will say is, the other P is preparation. And no matter what you do, just be as prepared as you possibly can. When they say, and we've all heard the expression, right? When you fail to plan, you plan to fail. The fact is that you all have a tremendous opportunity in front of you. The future looks never more brighter than when I see all of your faces out here, the scholarship recipients, those who have preceded you, because you're working hard, you're doing what you need to do, you're doing what you have to do to advance and succeed. So the fact is that harness that, work with that, and without question use that for the betterment of tomorrow. And in thinking about that preparation and the planning, when you show up, just be the best you can be. Do the best you possibly can do. But the more you plan and the more you work, more confident you'll be, and the more confidence you have, the more likelihood that you'll succeed. And finally, I'll tell you is that we have an obligation to pay it forward. That's the final thing. And that is, we all have had an opportunity, and there's so many dignitaries here and elected officials and wonderful people who serve as such great role models. Tremendous. Being judges, chief judges, and, whether it's Congress, we saw the congressman's remark, and commissioners, and everyone else who's here, the administrative, disciplinary, all of you who have come together in this place. What a place of powerful energy. But there's one thing to me that rings true, and that is that you're here and you're paying it forward. There's so many other places you could be on a Friday night. There's so many other things that you could be doing on Friday night, but you recognize the decency, the humanity, and the commitment to other people who are trying to get to where you are. You recognize that it's so important to lend a helping hand to those people so that they can have the opportunities that you had and had. And they could, with the grace of God, get to the places that you've been. And so even those former recipients who are here tonight, they got their scholarship. They could be in the win. But they came back to say, you know what? I'm doing the best I can at my college, which is awfully good. And I'm here to tell you that if you follow the path, so can you. And so I think part of being a good citizen, a good person, a good human being, is to give back and to recognize that there's a source out there that's greater than we are. It's not lost upon me that we're in a church. And the fact is that in being in this wonderful place, there's a person above who guides and who overlooks and who oversees and who demands so much of us. And that's not to say that we have to live lives in perfection. There's no one perfect amongst us. But it's not to say that we can't try to be the best people we possibly can be, and we can't try to blaze a path for others who are coming after us, that we can lend a helping hand to afford them the opportunities that we've had the privilege and the pleasure to have ourselves. And so, as I stand here today, there's no greater place I'd rather be. And it's just an honor to be before you, to have an opportunity to share this occasion with you, and have an opportunity to know that our futures are extremely bright. Your future are bright. Follow, of course, the arithmetic, right, the 3 R's. But with regard to what I just talked about, I think the P's are equally important too. And with that, I say God bless you, God keep you, God hold you, continue to be great people, great citizens, and great stewards for humanity. Thank you.